All right, we got ourselves some new lore here for Khuresh. I'll be going over the Toil-Puppet, which was released about a week or so ago, and the new Pannaga Raksaka, or the bifurcated watchers, as it were. We'll be going through them as we typically do. Again, the Pannaga Raksaka, they've given me ahead of time so I can go through with you guys. And then I will go through the lore of each one of these units, and we'll talk about how they might possibly be included into a Total War Warhammer 3 quote-unquote expansion. Now, just keep this in mind, this is a fan-made project, of course, so this is just a total labor of love from the gang. So I'll be providing all of the relevant links, especially to their world builder here, so you can take a look at all of the other units that we've gone over in the past. If this is your first time watching it, this will at least give you a chance to look at some of the other things that they've done. And again, I apologize up front for my terrible allergies, if you can't tell at all. My sinuses are horrifying. But let's start here with the Toil-Puppet and go through the lore. We'll be doing this kind of low tech on the Toil-Puppet. We'll just go through a nice read along here, and then jump back into some little segments as we jump into a little bit more about how they can be brought into the game. Here we are with the Toil-Puppet. The fungal greenskins came to the lands that would be known as Khuresh eons ago, attached as spores on the spacefaring silvered ships of the old ones. Bellicose to the extreme and tremendously prolific, the Greenskins proved such an indefatigable foe that even the Saurus armies at their prime could not wholly exterminate them. Tribes of primitive, savage orcs and forest goblins now roam the northern reaches of the Hinterlands, warring between themselves and against the beastmen and the civilization of the serpent naga. Let's go down here a little bit. In Scone Basin dwells the largest population of forest goblins within Khuresh, sharing their arboreal and cavernous homes with the earth tiger, great Khureshi huntsmen, and gravid orb weaver spiders. Just as in many other regions, the goblins were preyed upon by gigantic arthropods that inhabited the forests and chasms of the peninsula when they first arrived. They turned to the worship of these monsters, their spider venom drugged shamans building totems and learning to tame and coerce the arachnids as mounts and pets. The isolation of Khuresh from other large mountain chains meant that the local forest goblins could not easily trade with the mountain-dwelling night goblin tribes for iron weapons, so their tools of wood, stone, and bone remained primitive and of the minor hazard of the snake men. The earliest generation of the forest goblins had entered the primeval rainforests of Khuresh shortly after the Naga and snake men were abandoned by their creators. In the goblins, the Naga found a furtive species of thieving and spiteful yet cowardly beings, natural sneak thieves and backstabbers. However, they observed that the little greenskins possessed the aptitude and dexterity to construct more complex tools and contraptions that the larger orcs lacked the wits or motivation to make. The Naga also saw that tribes of orcs were able to bully the smaller goblins into compliance, creating a labor force that built and maintained their devices and weapons of war. Seeking an inexhaustible supply of laborers, the Naga attempted to dominate the extremely numerous goblins through similar displays of power and intimidation. The Greenskins proved poorly disciplined and frequently staged daring escapes, sabotages, or wide-scale rebellions when the opportunity arose. In the search for a way to overcome their innate disobedience, the Naga queens captured countless numbers of goblins and vivisected them into gruesome magical experiments, though only when they came into contact with humans and the parasites that afflicted them did the Naga queens make their ghastly breakthrough. Half lobotomized forest goblin subjects were grafted with body parts from human children, then implanted with a parasitic mutant hair snake that commandeered the mind of infested warm-blooded hosts. The mutant horsetail worm would burrow itself into the remaining portions of the greenskin's brain and take control of the greenskin's higher functions, amalgamating with its host as time passed and rendering it compliant. Prior to the operation, the worm parasite would be imprinted with specific Naga or Pannaga, establishing a magical link that allowed the serpents to direct their new puppets with only their thoughts. The body of the former goblin would then be embalmed and placed within an ensorcelled urn or jar filled with oil extracted from the other dead goblins, where it would emerge days later for service. Taught craftsmanship by the Naga, the impish Toil-Puppets were sent to work on the Great Serpent Sanctums, where the Toil-Puppets proved themselves as skilled but mercurial craftsmen and workers. Though the creation process had made them more suggestible, the host organism had remarkably retained a sliver of their capricious green-skin nature that urged them to cause harm. Grasping and prone to boredom in peacetime, the Toil Puppets would inevitably instigate acts of ruin during building projects, though to a far less damaging extent than pure goblins, and were more easily placated with gifts. Undeterred, the Serpent Naga repurposed many of these first Toil Puppets as agents of subversion and sabotage, sent forth to steal vital resources, correspondence, and artifacts from the enemy, spy on their rivals, harry supply lines, and assassinate vulnerable targets by swarming them on occasion. Successive generations were infused with the essence of Jin and spites during the embalming stage, further improving their furtiveness as the creatures could now obscure themselves in shadow until they wished to reveal themselves or were detected through witch sight. Referred to by local humans as Toil, or look trap, the fully developed Toil Puppets have the repulsive childlike appearance of a goblin-human hybrid, a large, sickly green or brown misshapen infant covered in tumorous growths with a stooped posture and retractable claws hanging off of gangly arms. Unfocused milky eyes emerge from the creature's husk of a face above a perpetually grimacing mouth filled with needle-like teeth. The Toil Puppet bears a malevolently playful and erratic personality like that of a vicious child. Agile and swift as the langurs of southern Cathay, despite its disproportionate limbs, the creature delights in scaling walls and trees where it stalks those who pique its interest. The Toil Puppets are incapable of conventional speech, communicating with their handlers telepathically. The voice boxes of the goblins are always the first thing removed in the creation process, as the greenskins' incessant blathering has always annoyed the Naga. Instead, faint childlike giggling and tapping noises can be heard from no distinct source whenever a Toil Puppet lurks close and wants their presence to be known. When inactive, the Toil Puppets sleep inert in urns and large jars filled with viscous dark oil. These containers are placed throughout the temple laboratories and secluded in tree alcoves and statues that demarcate the borders of Blood Naga territories. Large concentrations are scattered throughout the northern borders of Khuresh, with Cathay and Ind, near the southern border with the Astor-controlled gates of Calith, and around the web-festooned, green-skinned stronghold of Scone Basin in the northern hinterlands. These wake from fitful sleep in mass to alert the snakemen of incoming invasions and screen their armies when the serpents launch punitive assaults. Ever since the primitive orcs and goblins began attacking the human inhabitants of Khuresh, the chosen prey of the Naga, the snakemen have used the Toil Puppets' subversive abilities to keep the greenskins of the hinterlands in a constant state of attrition, through internal tribal warfare by playing on their superstitions and implicating each other in thefts, murders, and abductions. The forest goblins have only the vaguest notion of the vile experiments their kind are subjected to, and their tribes often accuse one another as serpent collaborators. In times of war, the Toil Puppets are brought to the battlefield where their elusive qualities and vexatious personalities are exploited for lethal effect as stealthy scouts and skirmishers. They are armed with wicked daggers and the venom-laced rambite throwing darts, which the imps employ with savage glee against the gores of the jungles in twisted games. Little more than a sharpened stake with a coarse, black-feathered tail, these darts allow the Toil Puppet to attack at range before swiftly slinking away into the gloom. The Toil Puppets begin their unnatural lives with fragile constitutions, easily harmed by mundane weapons. The serpents are careful not to needlessly expend too many of them, as the death of entire packs of Toil Puppets can debilitate a linked Naga queen, Kanya or Pannaga, for hours through a feedback loop curse affected by the mental tether. As the years pass, however, their strength increases from a diet of blood, milk, and raw flesh until their speed and reflexes rival that of elves. Horrific in aspect, the elder specimens called talismanics are ethereal creatures vulnerable only to enchanted weapons. The black candle troop of the Eben Stone Marga and the gold leaf-covered Auric Young of the Golden Cradle Marga are particularly formidable packs of talismanics that have survived for centuries. Shrouded in dark magic with Shaiish-cursed darts and Gur-cursed blades, these scuttling aberrations can puncture through armor and pluck out the hearts of beasts, elves, and men with barely an inconvenience. They are particularly empowered during Geheimnisnacht and Hexennacht under the light of Morrislieb, rampaging freely under the jungle canopy of the hinterlands and sowing misery wherever they go. So a lot of really cool mechanics kind of built into these little dudes, right? When you take a look at this picture here, you get that very goblinoid little creature going on. And I think there could be a lot of fun when you look at these brought into a Total War setting. I think they make a lot of sense as being simply a kind of stock-based skirmish-style unit in a close combat variant, having poison weapons that do, well, poison. And then a range variant that has just simply the little darts that also do poison. So kind of almost look at these things as gutter runners, more or less, for Khuresh. And I think that that is a pretty cool option. And then even more so, you could say that there's another unit for the talismanics that is then ethereal, or a regiment of renown version for the Toil Puppet that is the talismanics, so you have that ethereal portion. And I really like how they talk about the expansion to, Djinns and spites, how it's not just simply, successive generations were infused with the essence of Djinn and spites during the embalming stage, further improving their furtiveness as the creatures would now obscure themselves in shadow until they wished to reveal themselves or were detected through witch sight. And you get a lot of that kind of like imbued in just kind of like the overall look at these guys. And like, oh man, the worm thing, like, man, that I was like, I'm freaking out when I was reading it. And I like that it's like it pulls a lot from what we know of those actual worms in the real world. So that's kind of fun, right? But makes a very fun, flavorful unit. But I think bringing the talismanic portion of this to life as far as a unit that is ethereal would be really cool. And I think that ethereal units kind of have been done dirty when it comes to Total War Warhammer. Ethereal units were pretty terrifying in tabletop. And I feel like every time I see an ethereal unit, like I look at the Sirens or we look at the Cairn Wraiths, they never get a chance to really get off the table because they're just so crappy in Total War. Whereas in tabletop, like a spirit hosts were pretty serious. They were pretty hard to kill because mundane weapons would really just take forever to kill them. So you had to really focus down magic weapons into them. And the amount of magic damage that you could do in tabletop is poor in comparison to Total War Warhammer, where every other unit does magic damage now. So I think that making an overhaul in general to ethereal units would be really fun, and having the talismanic being represented as these ethereal units for the Toil Puppets would also be pretty cool to just kind of bring some more life into that unit choice. Because with Total War Warhammer 3, obviously, we're going to have plenty of demons, so I would hope too that we're going to see, with the demons coming into the game, some form of change to ethereal units. All right, now for our next unit, though, we've got the Pannaga Raksaka, and these guys are awesome looking, so I can't wait to show them off to you. Let's jump into this lore here. It's a little bit smaller than the other lore, so we should be able to jump through this pretty quickly. The honored Pannaga Raksaka, or bifurcated watchers, comprise the monstrous elite guard of the Blood Naga Queens, drawn from a specially bred strain of the Pannaga caste of snakemen. Rarely seen by warm-blooded mortals unless a Naga Queen personally takes charge of a war effort, or one has the extreme misfortune to be taken captive into the Serpent's Temple laboratories, the devoted Raksaka protect their Naga charges and their sanctums with methodical ferocity and steadfast resolve. Possessed of incredible physical prowess and practically immortal unless slain by violence, most of the Raksaka are as old as the temple laboratories that they protect. Rather than standing sentinel in the open around the chambers of their queens, as would other guards, the Raksaka seclude themselves in wide, adjacent recesses above and below the entryways, as they wait for interlopers foolish enough to believe the Naga undefended and vulnerable, eyes scanning ceaselessly through the dim halls. When an intruder presents itself, they strike out lightning fast and brutally crush their target. Stealth is no refuge, as their enhanced senses and witch sight can detect spells of concealment, body heat, the faintest changes in scent and wind direction, and the slightest reverberations of heartbeats or footsteps. Only when called upon to escort their queens or to perform some urgent task or pursue a specific quarry do they emerge onto the battlefield armed to the teeth. Millennia of experimentation from their Naga queens have made the Raksaka a strange breed. Besides the characteristic 4 arms of the Pannaga and 2 tails, they have 2 heads with their own flexible, elongated necks. The 2 heads seamlessly act in concert as if they are part of a single consciousness and are able to make precise predictions of enemy movements, giving the Raksaka unparalleled awareness and dexterity in battle, and allowing them to wield a combination of close combat and ranged weapons simultaneously. One pair of arms would wield swords and shields or wickedly bladed double crescent polearms, crafted from warpstone and meteoric iron, which can pierce through ethereal forms as easily as flesh and steel. The other pair would shoot the vile spine-splinter arrows from ornate great bows, blood-cursed projectiles with forked heads that possess a strange intelligence. These arrowheads break off from the shaft and come alive once they make contact with their targets, boring into the bodies of struck victims and honeycombing them from the inside out. The preternatural skill of the Raksaka lets them steadily rain down volleys of such arrows, even as they strike down the enemy within arm's reach. The fortitude of these serpents is legendary across Khuresh, capable of bearing wounds that would incapacitate other snakemen. On their rare appearances on the battlefield, they form into disciplined ranks that anchor the entire army, living walls for their Naga queens fearless of any danger. Their armor is the toughest among the Khureshi as befitting their status, with interlocking plates of meteoric iron mail, reinforced with burning veered stone inscriptions that thrum with terrible curse-giving spells. If somehow slain in battle, and unless the body of the Raksaka is consumed by flame or ruined beyond recognition, a younger form of the Raksaka will emerge from the remains within an hour, like a snake shedding its skin, and mature within weeks, recollecting its previous memories and battle expertise before resuming its post at the Naga's side. Long-lived as they are and bearing the memories and experience of countless fights, a few venerated Pannaga Raksaka legions tend to gain a taste for dealing death to a particular type of foe, earning distinctive epithets. The Ebonstone Marga have the Elf Manglers, the Twin Snakes and Umber progeny both deploy separate bands of Dwarf Slicers, and the cannibalistic Immortal Coil field the Serpent Eaters that are dreaded and despised by all other snakemen. Others, such as the firearm-hoarding Amaranthine Lotus, the aquatic Turbinid Abyss, and the gliding mercenary Twin Snakes Marga field even stranger Raksaka regiments blessed with exotic weaponry or mutations. So a pretty fun, awesome looking unit here, as you can see. Let's get you guys a good little visual of them. And what I really like about this lore here is that this kind of different approach to this unit. I think that in a lot of ways it would definitely have a hybrid variant, maybe one where you can say, hey, you can maybe pick and choose. With the Greenskins update, we got a lot of granularity that was added into units, and I would love for that granularity to extend to different choices in armament rather than just saying, okay, hey, if you want to have let's just say one unit with dual swords, well, there you've got this unit. You want to have one with swords and shield, you've got another unit. I like the ability to just be able to customize one unit. It reduces a lot of roster bloat, and that way, you know, you also get a lot of different variations from units, so you can have a little bit more of a custom feel to your army. And I think that that is something that Total War in general lacks. It's always had this thing where it's like, okay, if you want a different weapon loadout, it's a whole different unit with a different unit card and blah, 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 blah. I'd just rather you could have an ability to switch armament. And I think for these guys, that would be really key. Even if we're just using the Greenskins mechanic, you could say that, hey, you've got 3 different variations. You've got one that has this scythe spear, and then one that has with a longbow, and then you've got another variation that's got the sword and shield and a longbow, and maybe you've got another variation that just has like 2 swords and a longbow. So definitely a hybrid unit that is using a bow and arrow. But then if we're just using that Greenskins rework scrap mechanic, you could then bring in this little bit of information here about how each one of these units really becomes a specialist in attacking other races. So this way, you could essentially customize each one of your Raksaka to essentially have, hey, okay, these guys are dwarf slicers, and they're going to be even better at attacking dwarfs. These guys are the elf manglers. So you can say, hey, you know, in my campaign with Khuresh, I'm going to be marching north, so I'm going to be fighting with a lot of Cathay. Okay, I want manhunters. Well, I'm going to be going south, so I'm going to be dealing with a lot of high elves. Okay, well, elf manglers it is. And I think that that's a really cool way to take that green skin scrap mechanic and apply it to other things in Total War, especially this unit. So I'm really excited to see more things come out of the Khuresh team, because as we start to get to some of these unique units, like look at the ornate armor on these guys. Like this one was made by Cobol Yu. You can see that ornate armor, and then like the chainmail that kind of goes down the length of the body, which is really awesome. I just really love so much of the aesthetics that they poured into, especially the crowns and everything, and the helmets. And you can see a lot of the influences from a lot of different cultures in, you know, Southeast Asia, across a lot of different portions of the world. That is a little bit different than just the simple Western European pulling that we get from a lot of the Warhammer aesthetics. This is a bit different, a little crazier aesthetic, and it's something that I think a lot of Western audiences are not as familiar with. So I think it is very exotic and very awesome. It is very beautiful and ornate in its portrayal too, as well, by the Khureshi team. So I'm excited to see more from them. One thing I did want to talk about too, because I mentioned this in the lore, how oh, that's kind of weird, how they can if they're slain in battle, they can come back. So it'd be interesting if they had kind of a regeneration ability that allowed them to regenerate units, just like we've seen with the new Beastman rework, and having that, the horrible regeneration, able to regenerate units. And I'm sure we're going to see that with Nurgle as well. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Please don't forget to check out the links to these guys and their world builder, so you can keep following along with their continued release of all these new amazing units that they're creating. This is a 100% a fan project, and it is beautiful in its both lore, in its army composition, and I can't wait for Total War Warhammer 3 to actually come out so they can talk to modders and actually make this army come into the game, especially with such an awesome backbone of lore that's going to be included with it from all the stuff they've released. It would probably be one of the most comprehensive full race mods that we could probably see in a Total War game, that is especially from a race that doesn't really quote unquote exist. Sure, Khuresh does exist in the lore, but very limited in its scope. This actually fully fleshes it out, and I would love to see this brought to the actual table. But again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Thank you for dealing with these horrible allergies and the way I sound. Hopefully we'll be back to normal in a couple days here, so be on the lookout for more stuff coming in the next days and weeks. But have a good one, and take care.